Maybe you filled one out when we first started. That doesn't count. If you've not filled one out in the last 3 weeks, please do today. They're out at the table, and we're trying to put together a complete database to communicate with you because there's a truckload of changes coming, and we need to communicate. So please, if you haven't filled one of these out, fill one of these out. And then grab a bunch of business cards, give them away, or touch cards, give these things away. In theory, you don't need them because you're here. But grab a pile of these and be generous. Be generous with our touch cards. That would be a good thing. Hey, listen, update on the new building. You ready? Okay, here's the deal. We're moving forward. We Friday, 5 o'clock, we moved forward with the lender. We got all those hoops jumped through. We signed an addendum to our contract, and we are buying a building. We're buying a building. We got to give the matching money this week from the Assemblies of God of $30,000. So through giving and pledges and for that matching fund, we have $60,000. $60,000. That we're to go towards the down payment on the building. Currently, here's what the schedule will look like. We're scheduled to close on or before November 10th. So we're really praying, if you join us in that we would close earlier than that, before the 10th. And here's why. The 10th is a Thursday, and the contract with the existing church in that building says that they have 3 days to vacate the building after closing. Well, that would make that Sunday the 13th. And so how do I say this and not make it sound rude? We want them out. Yeah, they can join us for service. They can do that. We want them gone. That sounds bad. So we want to believe for closing prior to the 10th. And so we will either have our first service in that building either Sunday, November 13th, definitely Sunday, November 20th. All right? So, yeah. Super stoked about that. So what does that do for us here? All the announcements I made last week, forget about it. Forget about it. We were going to start 2 services here on the 23rd because we didn't know what that timeline looked like. We're not going to do that. We're just going to stay with 1 service, pack y'all in like this. Man, it's just good to see all of you here. I'm just going to pack you in it's only 5 more weeks. So if you don't like the person you're next to, 5 weeks, bear with them. Pray this thing through, because that new room seats 300, and you don't even have to talk to them if you don't want. Okay? So we're not going to go to 2 services. And also on the 23rd, we were going to begin our high school youth ministry. We're going to bump that until the first Sunday in December, so we can get all the details put together before that happens. And is that everything I have to say? 2 services, high school youth group. We are still doing a water baptism here the 23rd. Sunday the 23rd. Right out here. Put them in, hold them under. Okay? So, right out here, we'll fill up a pool. And, oh yes, Wednesday Bible studies at Ferraro's house. Please join us, 7 o'clock each week. It's an amazing time. Even if we don't talk about the Bible, it's just great relational time and getting to know each other in an atmosphere that's very, very comfortable. Listen, for the next 5 weeks, here's something we do need. We set up every Saturday at 7 o'clock, and then following service, we tear everything down. And we need a few more hands to help us over the next 5 weeks. People that can be here Saturday at 7, and people that can stay late and help tear down. And tear down means, I don't know. Because Mo and Kelly do it so well. So, but we just need to get some more hands to help Mo and Kelly, and especially next week, they for some reason think they need to not be here. So we're going to pray for them. But if you would please, for 5, we're asking. Well, actually, yeah, 4 weeks. We're asking for 4 weeks, maybe 5. We're believing for 4. But if you would touch base with Mo and Kelly today and say, look, you can count on me. Every Saturday at 7, I'm here, or every week after service, I'm not leaving until you tell me we're done. We're asking for just 5 weeks of serving, okay? So, can someone here say, you know what, I'll talk to Mo and Kelly before I leave? There's some hands. All right, cool. Thank you. Cool. I think that's it. That's it. Everybody have a good week?
Yep.
You have a good week?
Yes.
Good week? Nobody have any challenges? Did I have a good week? Yeah. Whoever said that?
Did you have a good week?
Yeah, I had a good week. It was nice to wake up to an email that said you've been awarded the $30,000 matching funds. That was a cool email. That was cool. That was a good day. I had a great week. I am so excited about today and where we're going. I told you a while back, we started serving communion on Sunday morning. And we served it a few weeks, and I really felt in my heart that I couldn't do that. I needed to stop. And the reason I felt like I needed to stop is because I felt like we were doing communion just out of a religious obligation. We meet on Sunday, and you're supposed to serve communion, and that's really why we started serving it. And the Holy Spirit just let me know that that's out of order. We don't meet here for religious purposes. We don't meet here for tradition. We don't meet here for habit. We meet here because we're passionate about Jesus and want to see Him make a difference in people's lives. And so I stopped serving communion and told you that I was going to begin, I would teach on it before we would serve it again. So I'm going to take the next few weeks. Today I'm going to speak on communion. I'm going to speak about some of the basics of what we do and why we do it here. Today I'm going to speak on communion. Next week I'm going to speak on worship. The week after that I'm going to speak on water baptism. Next week after that, I'm going to, you probably no one will show up, I'll tell you. I'm going to speak on fasting. One of the forgotten important parts of the kingdom. And so we're just going to take a few weeks and just really talk about some of the basics and why we do them and we don't do them out of religious obligation. And I'm the kind of guy that if we prepare to have communion, but I feel like the Spirit says it's not for today, we're just not going to serve communion. I don't want to do anything out of habit.
Amen.
Yeah? Amen. So today I want to talk about communion. I'm just super, super excited about it because, man, the Lord just downloaded a whole new picture of what communion is in my mind. And listen, I want to believe, and most of us in this room, whether you're a Christ follower or not, have an idea, a concept of what communion is. Communion in a traditional set would be some kind of a juice or a wine and a biscuit and gravy. We'd have communion at Nick's Diner. But for most of us, communion is, a juice or wine and some kind of a piece of bread or a wafer of some kind. And sometime during the service it's taken out and we serve communion or we take communion, whatever term you want to use. And so I feel like probably everybody's familiar with that description of communion. I hope that we're familiar with Jesus said, "This is my body broken for you," and His body was broken for our healing. He did stripes for our healing, everything about His broken body. If you read the book of Luke, you can read the last 18 hours of Jesus' life. They were it's very detailed in the book of Luke because he was a physician, so he really wrote it from a different angle of anyone else. So the last 18 hours of Jesus' life was just full of brutality and his body being broken and all that he went through physically. And because he went through that, by those stripes, we're healed. We can be physically healed, emotionally healed, relationally healed, financially healed, socially healed. We can be completely healed because of that broken body.
Amen.
Because of the shed blood, we can be completely forgiven. That's good news. That's the gospel. That's the good news. Because he poured out his blood for us. And so the bread is symbolic of his broken body, and so Jesus said in Matthew 6, you have to eat my body and drink, or eat my flesh and drink my blood. And so that's what we do symbolically. I promise you, we never serve here Jesus' blood or flesh in this place. But symbolically, we're taking it in. And we're remembering. He says, what you do in remembrance of me. And so oftentimes we twist communion. We don't do it in remembrance of him. We do it in remembrance of our failures. And then communion comes about me, not him. And that's not what he told us to do. And so today I really am not going to talk about the traditional aspects of communion as we serve it here. Now we will hit on those nuances from time to time when we serve communion. Today I want to take a little deeper look at communion. First I want to read to you the definition of communion. And I've told you a lot, and I'll always tell you, I guess, till I'm done. My favorite dictionary, Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary. I have a copy of it. It's an amazing dictionary. I encourage you to to buy a copy. No, 1828 Noah Webster's Dictionary is the last year that the American Dictionary was published with Bible references in it. And so you can get an updated one or whatever they call it. It's not the original, but so communion, defined by Noah Webster, communion is the sharing or exchange. Say exchange.
Exchange.
Yeah, I'm going to have you help me a lot today, so say exchange.
Exchange.
The sharing or exchange of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange, say exchange,
Exchange.
especially when the exchange is on the mental or spiritual level. That's communion. The sharing or exchange of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange is on a mental or spiritual level. There's an exchange. It's important we get that word. When there's communion, there's an exchange. There's something traded. I give this for this. That's communion. Common union. Okay? There's an exchange in communion. Another word, the Greek word is koinonia. Koinonia defined it's oversimplified defined means to fully share. So I fully share. Whatever I have is yours. I fully share. There's no restrictions. We have koinonia. And Jesus was saying, when you koinonia, my death is fully for you. Okay? You guys with me so far?
Yeah.
Communion, there's an exchange. I could have given you a litany of Bible verses that would point this out, and I've chosen to just do one because I really want to get into a story where we're going to head. If you have your Bibles, in a couple of minutes, we're going to go to 2 Samuel. And you'll want to open up to them. But before a bullet point, or really gives us a great picture of communion. That communion. And really it's Matthew 6:33. Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek me first, and everything else will be added." And too often we read that and we think, well, seek me first means just go try to find him. No, seek me first means I'm going to spend time. I'm going to find you, but I'm going to spend time in your word. I'm going to put your word in my heart. I'm going to digest it. I'm going to process it. I want to know what your word has to say to me. It's going to be a priority in my life. I'm going to put your word in my heart. See, the truth of the matter is, I just tell you right now, if first thing, I read the Bible first thing of the day. I think it's the first thing we should do. I really believe that principle. I think David says it over in the Psalms. Early in the morning, I'll rise. Every day I will put your word before me. All through the Psalms, David points out that principle. And listen, if the first thing you do in the morning is flip to your Facebook or flip to your whatever, that's your God. Whatever your first thought is in the morning is your God. You can just rest on that. If your first thought in the morning is fear of something happening, that's your God. We love you, Pastor. Thank you for being honest. You're welcome. You are welcome. And I'm just being honest with you. To seek him first, we put his word first, we put prayer first, we worship him, we share, we participate in his sufferings, we seek him first. The exchange, everything gets added. Okay? It's seek me first, everything will be added. And we love that everything will be added as long as we're the one getting added. When it's somebody we know we don't think deserves being added and they're getting added, we don't, no, that's not right. But just a simple picture of communion, the exchange, is Matthew 6:33. Seek me first, I'll add everything. Okay? Because I really do believe that the intention when Jesus was in the upper room with his guys, and they're all having the Last Supper, and there's foot washing going on, and he's breaking the bread, and they're drinking the cup. I really don't believe in his mind he was saying, look, when you gather on Sunday mornings, get a couple little plastic cups. Drink the juice, don't spill it, you'll stain the floor, and eat the biscuit. I don't think that was his picture. I don't believe that at all. I don't think it was just a Sunday morning exercise. Because really, in Christ, nothing is to be just a one-time experience outside of your salvation. Okay? So what does it look like? What does the Last Supper look like? What does the Passover look like? What does communion look like in my daily life? What difference does it make if I don't take communion? You ever ask that question? That's kind of where I started here. What difference does it make? What's the point? What if we never took communion? What would we miss out on? What's the big deal? I think too often in our faith walk, we just walk down that road. I wonder how many years I've just taken communion and never asked, what's the matter? Am I not saved anymore? Does it really matter? Does it really matter they serve communion? That's just an old tradition. We don't use hymn books anymore. Why do we still do that? So I really started there. If I'm going to teach on communion, what would happen if we didn't serve communion? We'd just save some time and a little bit of money, and we just move forward. Second Samuel, chapter 9, verse 13. Is that me? Am I fading away? Am I okay? Okay. I'm going to just keep going until I'm told not to. 2 Samuel 9:13. And Mephibosheth, say Mephibosheth. Isn't that fun? Mephibosheth. Go ahead, try it. Mephibosheth. Listen, you got to be able to say it because this week you're going to tell people, hey, this week at church our pastor talked about Mephibosheth. Okay, let's not mess it up. Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth. Boy, some of y'all are struggling. Mephibosheth.
Well, let me write this word down.
Mephibosheth. How many of you ever even heard of Mephibosheth?
Not me.
We got one Mephibosheth. No, yeah. Okay, we're gonna have an altar call. Is there any liars in the house? Love you, Freddie. Mephibosheth. What a great name. I think if I was in a punk rock band, that would be your name. Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth. Let me warn you now, we're going to go long. Okay. This is really important. That's really why, not just because I like to talk. Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table and he was crippled in both feet. Listen, I grew up in the church. I grew up going to youth group. I grew up going to youth camp. And I rebelled until I was steeped in sin. I rebelled until I was in a very dark place. And wow, and God, when I came to the dinner table of the Lord, I mean, I was scarred, and I was broken, and I was addicted, and I was a mess. And I was spiritually crippled. Because I knew what it looked like, but I wasn't living it. I couldn't. I didn't know how to do it. I was spiritually crippled. And I had gone so far as when I was born with a hole in my heart, a hole in the wall of my heart, and it was large enough that with a stethoscope you could hear the blood going back and forth between chambers. And by the age of 12, I was supposed to have open heart surgery. And you tell that to a 9 and 10-year-old, and that's a scary piece of information. And when I was 12 years old, I was headed to Seattle with my mom to go to the Seattle hospital, children's hospital. And my mom took me to the front of the church, and she had the elders of the church anoint me with oil and lay hands on me. And I went to Seattle, and the hole was gone. And yeah, it's amazing. I was written about it in magazines. I could bring magazine articles about this story. But even still, with that miracle in my life, I made this choice to hurt him. I made this choice to walk away. I made this choice to live a spiritually crippled life. And I really do think part of it is because I didn't understand the exchange. I think many of us in this room know what it's like to be an outcast. I think many of us in this room know what it feels like to be singled out. I think many of us in this room know what it feels like to fail and feel like now that everybody identifies me. Mephibosheth was an outcast. I wish the church was better at I wish this church was better than Psalm 68, where it says, the Lord puts the lonely into families. I wish we were better. Wow. So Mephibosheth, in biblical culture, the lame were not allowed in the synagogue. The lame were not allowed in the synagogue. And it was, the Levitical rules and the quorum of the day. So Mephibosheth, he had never even been to church. He could never even go to church. And yet we just read a thing that says, or a verse that says, he had a place at the king's table. So back up from 2 Samuel 9, let's catch up to 2 Samuel 9. Look at 2 Samuel 4, verse 4. Jonathan, son of Saul. Now Saul was the king. Saul started out pretty good, doing pretty well, and then he blew it. The guy was an idiot. He absolutely blew it. Saul blew it. In fact, 2 Samuel says that there was a time when it says that the Lord regretted ever making Saul king. He blew it so badly. Jonathan was his son. Jonathan, son of Saul, who had a son who was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old, his son, not Jonathan. It'd be weird for a 5-year-old to have a son. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. Now, what's that news? We can back up even further and read this whole story. Saul was in a great battle with the Amalekites, and Saul was killed. Actually, he killed himself. He fell on his own sword because he'd been wounded by an archer, and he asked his armor bearer, kill me now before they do, and they torture me. And his armor bearer said he can't do it, so Saul fell on his own sword. Armor bearer felt like he failed his king, so he killed himself. And in that battle, Jonathan, Saul's son, dies as well, the father of Mephibosheth. So it says here, Jonathan, son of Saul, who had a son, was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. Jezreel is a city. It's a cool city. It's a cool name. We'll talk about that some other day. Jonathan's, or Mephibosheth's nurse, his nurse, some translations say nanny, some translations say caretaker, some translations say aunt. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she hurried to leave, he fell and became crippled. His name was Mephibosheth. Okay, so the story starts really with this young grandson who, quite honestly, he's the grandson of a wicked king who had messed up the whole country. He's 5 years old. And here's the deal. They knew with Saul dying, there would be a new king. And tradition in this day was when there was a new king, that king would slay all family members of the previous king. So there'd be no chance of an overthrow. So there'd be no anarchy. The new king calls in all the family of the previous king, kills them all. That's why the nanny is freaking out here. Saul's dead. I got to protect Mephibosheth, the grandson of Saul. So nanny is trying to protect Mephibosheth. Somehow she trips and falls. Some scholars believe that it was on a set of stairs, that she fell down the stairs, and Mephibosheth somehow broke both of his ankles, and they never healed. We don't really know, but we do know he was crippled in both feet because of her trying to flee before the new king would begin slaying the family members of the previous king. Okay? Scarred. He's broken. And yet we started out reading that he was sitting at the king's table. See, if we're going to move into El Mirage, listen to me, there's people out there that are scarred. There's people out there that are broken. There's people out there that don't have a clue of the amazing grace of Jesus Christ. And the truth of the matter is, church, listen to me, City Church, listen close. Unless we understand the value of the exchange that I'm about to talk about, we have no point in going out there. We have nothing more to offer them. We have nothing to offer that community if we go out scarred and broken. There's a reason Jeff's in the hospital. There's a reason that the doctors are healthy. They're taking care of the sick. We have got to be healthy in our lives to be able to go and reach more that need to know about the exchange that I'm talking about today. You got that? You with me? Yep. So really there's three reminders we're going to learn in reference to communion through the story about Mephibosheth. So Saul dies, 20 years passes by, David becomes the next king. David's the next king, 20 years pass by. So 20 years goes by, Mephibosheth now 25 years old. He's 25 years old. He's grown up ashamed. He's grown up ostracized. He's grown up scarred. He's grown up in a barren land. He's grown up with no inheritance. He's grown up with no hope. And 20 years passes by. 2 Samuel chapter 9. 20 years goes by from 2 Samuel 4, 2 Samuel 9. 20 years goes by. David asked, I have no idea what this has popped in my head, but it did, so I'm going to say it. Listen, I love electronics and Bible apps, but if you don't ever read your paper Bible, can I just tell you, read your paper Bible? Because our phones are too easy to check the email that just showed up or the text that just came in. But it's okay to put your phone down for 9 minutes. Just let Jesus talk to you. Okay, so 2 Samuel 9:1. David asked, is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Now there was a servant of Saul's household named Ziba. They called him to appear before David, and the king said, are you Ziba? He should have had a badge. He said, yes, your servant, he replied. The king asked, watch this, is there no one still left in the house of Saul? This is the wicked king that tried to kill David, that lied about David, that manipulated David, that pursued David, that tried to make David starve to death, that got David's son Absalom to turn on David and throw dirt on David. This is the king who tried to soil David's reputation. This is the king that lied about him. This king that set David up for total failure. Saul was the one that lied, betrayed, broke, messed up Jonathan or David. And David says, is there no one of the house of Saul that I can show God's kindness? What a powerful statement. You have trouble forgiving someone that's hurt you? Serve them. Serve them. Ziba answered the king, there is still a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in both feet. The reason, one of the areas of communion is going to remind us about is Mephibosheth was called to the table of the king because there was an exchange, say exchange, made for him before he ever existed. There was an exchange set in place before Mephibosheth ever existed. He was crippled, rejected, no social services, no welfare programs. But David made a covenant with Mephibosheth's dad. And 20 years after Mephibosheth's dad dies, an exchange that was made before Mephibosheth even existed. See, you are here today, you're in this room because there's an exchange made for you before you ever landed on this planet. There was an exchange. There was a communion before you ever got here. The promises of the blood, the promises of the broken body, the promises are were set in place before we ever made a decision of life. And here's the deal. How many of us have tried? How many of us have tried this? This time, this week, I'm going to do better. By God, this is the week. And by noon, you're falling on your face. I'm going to forgive that person. I'm going to forgive that person. I'm going to forgive that. That shirt reminds me of that person. I'm really angry. You can't do it without the exchange. You can't overcome what's beat you down without the exchange, without the common union, without communion, without koinonia. See, Romans 3:12 says, all have turned away. They have together become worthless. There's no one who does good, not even one. John 14:6. Jesus answered, I'm the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. Nobody gets to my daddy except through me. Listen, the king calls me up, calls you up. He calls us out of places of rebellion. He calls us out of places of brokenness. He calls us out of places of failure. He calls us out of places of self-doubt. He calls us out of places of fear. He calls us out of places of disappointment. He calls us out and he says, listen, there's been an exchange made.
Amen.
Amen.
I thought that was good news. I should have put a smiley face there.
It's great news. There you go.
Verse 4, 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 4. David speaking. Where is he? The king asked. Ziba answered, he's at the house of Machir, son of Amiel, in Lodabar. Say Lodabar.
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 Lodabar. Lodabar.
So King David had him brought from Lodabar, say Lodabar,
Lodabar.
from the house of Machir, son of Amiel. Now, let me just tell you something, okay? Mephibosheth, that name means delayed and ashamed. That's what the name means, delayed and ashamed. Lodabar means a barren land. He was in a barren land. The condition, because of what had happened in his past, put him in a place of shame and barrenness. And that's where he's living his life. Because of, listen, there's those of us in this room, we didn't ask for a wicked father. We didn't ask for an alcoholic mom. We didn't ask for an unfaithful spouse. We didn't ask for an abusive uncle. We didn't ask to go through bankruptcy. We didn't ask to inherit different parts of it. We didn't ask for that. But I'm going to tell you today that the exchange that was made 2,000 years ago breaks all that. That common union changes all that. You may have lived in a barren land. You may be ashamed of your past. You may be ashamed. But listen, the exchange was made. The promises are there. The common union is ours today. Listen, when I came to Jesus, I came from somebody was here, I talked about my dad one time. I came from a crazy bloodline, who knows what kind of nationality bloodline and hatred and racial attitudes, and I come from this destructive bloodline. And I'm going to tell you something. When I came to the supper table and I met Jesus, my bloodline changed. I entered into the bloodline of a king.
Amen.
I became in the bloodline, the lineage of a king
Yes.
because of an exchange. And when I realized my bloodline and I realized the exchange, I don't fail as often because I'm going to live who I am. I'm going to protect what's been given to me. So when I get up in the morning and don't want to fail by noon, I remember until noon, no, I have the bloodline of a king. I don't behave like that anymore. There's been an exchange. Woo-hoo!
Amen.
Oh, I just want to declare of you right here, your past, whatever it is, it's gone. Your heritage, it's gone. Any mistakes you've made have no validation over you. You are in a new bloodline. New bloodline. Me too. New bloodline. Listen. We try to define ourselves by who we were and not by who Christ made us to be. We're really good at that. This has been on my mind for a while. Yes, listen, my drug use is a testimony that helps people love Jesus. That I get that. But I'm not defined by, this is Russ the drug user. But we are in that habit. I was sharing with Eric just a while back. We're in that habit. Well, when we read scripture, we talk about the man with the withered hand. He spent more of his life with a healed hand than he had a withered hand, but we still define him by the withered hand. The woman caught in adultery. He forgave her and gave her grace and sent her on her way, but we still call her that. Blind Bartimaeus, the brother got healed. We're really good at that. And we ourselves, and we define ourselves by what we were, not by what Christ made us to be when we enjoyed the exchange. Woo-hoo! Wow. Okay. 2 Samuel 9. This is about communion. 9 verse 6. When Mephibosheth, that's just a fun name. When Mephibosheth, I feel like Elf. Mephibosheth, that's fun. When Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. David said, Mephibosheth, your servant, he replied. Don't be afraid, David said to him, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore you, and you will always eat at my table. If you don't take anything else home, you take that right there. You will always eat at my table. Mephibosheth bowed down and said, what is your servant that you notice a dead dog like me? Tell me what he thought about himself. Tell me how he defined himself. Tell me how he perceived himself. Right here. He just told you what he thought about himself. Then the king summoned Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to Ziba, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. See, in the exchange, there's inheritance that's far greater than what we can imagine.
Yes.
In the common union, in the community, in the koinonia of taking communion, there's an exchange with an inheritance of more. This guy who thinks himself as a dead dog has just been given his grandfather's everything. And he didn't do one thing to earn it. There's an inheritance over you today that is for you today. And sometimes when we hear inheritance, we think that's some faraway place, and when I die, I'll get it. But when you get to heaven, you won't need it. So enjoy it now. Walk in those blessings today. I'm telling you, we don't grasp what he's got for us. I'm going to come in for a landing here. Maybe. Verse 10. David is talking to Ziba, the servant here. He's talking to the servant. Ziba, the servant. You and your sons and your servants. That is a powerful statement. You, your sons, and your servants are to farm the land for him, for Mephibosheth. And bring the crops so that your master's grandson may be provided for. And Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. We have got to come to the place where we stop viewing ourselves as perpetually broken, wasted, forgotten. No, you're a trophy on the mantle of the kingdom.
Amen.
You're a trophy on the mantle of the kingdom. You're a trophy on the mantle of the kingdom. Isn't it arrogant to think that? No, it's arrogant to think that you can define what God created. You're a trophy on the mantle of the kingdom. There's nothing arrogant about that. Try to picture this. King David calls his dinner. Calls it big old dinner. Everybody come on in. His entourage enters, and they sit down at the table, and in walks Amnon, David's oldest son. You know, and the Bible says that he was tall and he was handsome. So Amnon walks in, and probably got a couple women on his arms. Amnon cruises up, pulls up his table, his chair at the table, ready to eat with Dad. After Amnon comes in, his sister Tamara comes in. Bible said Tamara was one, beautiful like none other. When the Bible calls you beautiful like none other, like you got it going on. You got it going on. So Tamara, beautiful like none other, comes in, and she sits down at the table. Amnon's there, and Tamara's there. And so David's son Solomon, the smartest guy that's ever lived, like this guy, he's doing math quizzes as he's talking, has 300 wives. He shows up with 5 or 6 of them. Sit at the dinner table. We got Amnon, the oldest, the tall and handsome. We got Tamar, the most beautiful chick in the land. We got the smartest guy that's ever lived sitting at the table. Then in comes Absalom. You read about Absalom. That brother was rebel. Rebel, got spinners on his chariot. You know, he's got bass thumping on the back of the horse. Like he's rebel. Amnon's got really long hair. His hair was so long and thick that it got just stuck in a tree and it killed him. Bad deal. It's a bad deal for bad deal for old Absalom. So Absalom comes cruising in. He's the bad boy, and so we got Amnon, the handsome guy, and Tamar, the gorgeous chick, and we got Solomon, the brilliant dude. We got Absalom, the rebel, and then Joab shows up. My gosh, Joab, David's son, who he was the mighty warrior. If you read about Joab, he's a mighty warrior. You know, the brother's tattooed up, got notches in his gun belt. Like he walks in, sits down, give me steak. I mean, we're talking Joab is in the house. I'm just telling you, that's what's happening at this table. I mean, the crowd of people you never think you'd be with, you know, they're Gucci, GQ'd. They got it going on. They're lipo, lifted, tucked in. It's the whole thing going on at the table. And they're sitting down to eat. And as they just begin to dig in and the food starts to serve, they hear this noise. And it's a noise I've never heard in the palace before. And I can only imagine that it kind of just sounds like, and they all look up. And for the first time, they see somebody crippled in the palace. David stands up and says, Solomon, I need you to move down a seat. I need you to move over a little bit. And he walks over. And he embraces him and finishes it. I can just hear him whispering in Mephibosheth's ear, "You're not a failure. Don't go. I believe in you. I'm so glad you're here. I missed you. You're amazing. I want you at my table. I want to have communion with you." Mephibosheth, I've got a spot reserved with your name on it. In your brokenness, I just heal you. In your fear, I give you security. I want communion. I want to make an exchange. And we end up at 2 Samuel 9:13, where we started. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table. And he was crippled. Mo, will you get the communion trays, please? Jocelyn and Lisa, if you'll come up for a couple minutes. In a spiritual way, in a spiritual sense, some of you need to come to the dinner table of the Lord today. You've been waiting for it. And you've convinced yourself you can't go there because you're crippled. My struggle with this message is really what a mockery we've made of communion. I don't want to do that anymore. David, by the way, is a type of church. You may have heard of Davidic worship, or David's a type of church, and I think sometimes when it comes to church, and I'm not talking 10 o'clock Sunday morning. I'm talking home. Sometimes we need to stop hanging out and eating donuts. Metaphorically, you with me? And exchange. Have communion. That is way more important than a cup of juice. That's communion. I'm the ladies lead us for a little bit. I'm asking you to serve yourselves. There's a tray in the back, and I know it'll be cumbersome, and a little aisle, and I get all that. Whatever. There's 2 cups, take them both. The wafers underneath the juice. I'm just going to take a few minutes and let us come to the supper table of the Lord today with our crippled feet. Because when you pull us to the table, get the tablecloth over you, you look like everybody else. But maybe today you need to make a commitment to come to the Lord's Supper table here. Maybe today you need to make a commitment to come to the exchange here. But please don't ever take out a religious obligation. It's so much bigger. Take us whenever you're ready.